I'm about to remove the rear suspension, cage and all, obviously. The car is actually on some stands at the, hopefully the strongest point at the rear, which is on these rails here, which is under the bulkhead at the back. Having rested it on that, the point of balance is actually about that position there anyway, particularly with the weight of the cage. So I've got the jack taking the weight of the cage, and I'm about to start unbolting all the various components that attach the cage to the car. I've removed the brake line. I actually cut that, it's got to be replaced anyway. Someone had already cut the handbrake, so I don't have to worry about that. I've just got to finish taking off the drive shaft, and then I guess the hardest bit of all will be these bolts at the end here, which have gone into the cones. There's a fair bit of rust around there, particularly the cone and the floor, so I'm not sure how that's going to come out, but I'll see when I start to undo the bolts. Not a lot of room. I'm hoping I've got it high enough. I don't dare take it any higher, mainly because it seems a little bit unstable on the jack stands, so I'll just have to make do with the height that I've got. I'll lower it down on the jack and then probably have to take it off the jack and then slide it out from under the car. So when this weight is off, it'll certainly make a big difference to being able to support the car on stands. And it's taken me a good 5 hours, believe it or not, to actually undo all the pieces that need to be undone to remove the cage. Now, although this is the first time I've taken a cage out of an E-Type, I have taken one out of my XJ6, which I still have. It didn't take anywhere near that amount of time. Why the additional time? It's because of the bolts. One is an access problem. You really can't get ring spanners onto a lot of the bolts for the mounts into the frame, so you end up using or trying to get an open ender in there to hold one side and then a ring spanner on the other side. Sometimes you can't get a ring spanner on the reverse side either. So that was part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that the bolts just would not easily undo. They fought every thread that I turned. One bolt alone took 3/4 of an hour to undo, bit by bit, and there was no way it was going to free up. And that seems to be fairly consistent. The only bolts that were easy to get out were the ones going through the frame. They undid easily and popped straight out. The cones, of course, they were never going to come undone, and the only way that I was able to address that, as you can see there, I cut them out of the floor. Now, I know that seems like a drastic thing to do. Now, obviously, for this car, not such a drastic thing to do because the floor had to come out anyway. So I've cut them out, both sides. They wouldn't undo, so the cone is stuck in there. The actual cone cap is still attached to the floor, or what's left of the floor. I'll take these arms off once I've got the diff out from under the car, and spend some time removing that. But at this stage it was easier to cut it out of the floor than to keep persisting trying to undo something that was never going to undo. Anyway, it's got to be destroyed to get it off. I've got to get a new cone anyway, so, or new cones plural. So at this stage everything is now undone. I've got it supported in the centre with a trolley jack. I've got a couple of stands on either side just to stop it from tipping over. And now I just need to lower it down and manoeuvre it out from under the side of the car. So hopefully it won't take another 5 hours just to get it out from under the car. Now I've been progressively removing the dashboard and the various components that are behind it, concentrating on the driver's side at this stage and freeing up the wiring loom, which is, you know, at this stage a mess of wires, seeing I've disconnected it, just about everything. I've labelled everything. Now at this stage I'm probably not going to reuse the loom, well, certainly not all of it. I'll replace parts of it, but I'll label it anyway. It just might make it a little bit easier when it comes to fitting a new loom. Got most of the components off. It surprises me how many relays and so on are behind the dashboard in places where you actually can't get to them. You know, for example, up in the corner here you've got a dashboard in front. How you're meant to replace these if you have a fault without a major dismantling process, I have no idea. This seems to be a common thing on the E-Type. Things aren't really very accessible. The only time you can really access everything is when you're doing what I'm doing, and that's stripping the car completely down. So I've still got a bit to go on the wiring loom. I've got all the centre section here, the fuses and so on to disconnect. And that's before I can actually even think about getting the main loom out through the bulkhead down in there. Once I've done that, then I'll continue stripping things out of the car. Don't have a lot to go. Obviously I've got the glove box there, which won't take long to pull off, and obviously all of the things inside the bulkhead here, wiper mechanisms, water pipes, vacuum pipes and whatever else is in there. So still a bit to go, but I'm getting to the stage where most of the car is stripped down. Finally got the wiring loom out. That's the basically the behind the dash loom. The bit on the floor there is the bit that goes out into the engine bay. It's more than one loom, there's individual looms in there. Got them all out, got them all labelled. Tossing up whether I'll actually use any part of the loom, but I'll leave that to a later time. At any stage it is pretty well clean inside the car. I've started to take out the windscreen wiper mechanism. Not such a difficult job. You've got to obviously take the motor out. But what I did was I started on the inside to look at the access, and there is a fair amount of access providing you don't have all the wiring in the way. The motor comes out. This shaft which attaches the motor, I disconnected it when it was still part the way up, but there's a good chance it would actually come out in one piece still on the motor. But anyway, I took it off when it was part out. The rest of the mechanism, I finally figured the way to get that out. Obviously you undo the individual wiper arm mechanisms, and then it's one very large control unit that's left. Now it comes out the centre, and it comes out to the right hand side. So what you have to do is to, when you've got it in there, you slide the whole mechanism inside the bulkhead across to the left hand side of the vehicle and poke the extremities of it right down in the far corner, and you have to get it all the way over there. Then it just clears in the centre, and then you pull it out this way so the whole thing comes out. It's probably the easiest thing that I've done so far on the car, which surprises me, and I thought it would be one of the hardest things. Maybe getting it back is a lot harder than taking it out. What I have to do now is to take out the water pipes. We'll see how I go with that. I just can't get this undone, it's frozen onto the pipe. I'm not too worried about that. I'm replacing the pipes anyway, either with copper or stainless, not sure which. But I've got to actually take all those out now that there's nothing inside the bulkhead, or no additional pieces inside the bulkhead. I should be able to see if I can manoeuvre those out. Either, I assume you poke it in and pull it out through the front, but anyway, I'll figure that out as I go. There's a few pipes to take. Vacuum pipe, I'm not sure whether I'll take it out. I'll probably have to take it out because of the way I've got to mount the car. I may not replace it, so I'll see what condition that's in when I start to pull it apart. I've now basically finished the strip of the body. Not worried about the engine frames at this stage because I want to leave those on till I make the support for the rotisserie and jig, so I'm not taking those off until I've made that and it's actually mounted on the jig. Everything came off alright. The heating pipes came out surprisingly easy enough. You just got to get the right order to take them out. Vacuum pipe right down the bottom was a little bit harder to get out, but they all came out. Just got to remember to move any long pipes and devices to the left hand side of the bulkhead, then take it out through the centre. Windscreen wiper, motor and everything came out fine, no problem with that, including the mechanism inside. Wasn't overly hard. You've got a couple of access holes in the vehicle itself. I'll just try and put a bit of a light in here. And you've got access holes on the right hand side, in the centre, and on the left hand side. With those access holes, it's actually quite easy to get the heating pipes out, and also the wiper mechanism. Once again, wiper mechanism, just remember that it's got to be pushed to the far left of the bulkhead over there, and then you take it out through the centre. Once again, it was fairly easy to do, no real difficulties. So everything is off the bulkhead. The remaining thing I've got to take off, which I've just been working on, the sway bar at the back here. Now it's just a little bit tight. I'll just apply a bit of heat to the mounting bolts and that'll come out easy enough. What else? I've taken the latch mechanism out. The wiring looms, I'll just take those out shortly. So all in all, apart from the trim, which I'll take off as well, the body is stripped. There's nothing much left on it. So it's time just to tidy up those things that I haven't quite finished. So those looms at the back, I've already taken the petrol pipes out. I've got to take the brake lines out along underneath. No real difficulty to get to those. So all in all, the stripping process is complete. Now I haven't tallied up the hours yet, but I'll do that, and I'll put a note at the end of this video as to how many hours it took just to strip the car down. Now that doesn't include, of course, stripping the various components like the rear cage or even the engine, which is just sitting over in there. So, but it's just removing components from the car to end up with a body that you can start to work on to repair. So, stripping process complete. What I need to do next, after tidying this up, is to start to make a jig and rotisserie for the body so I can work on the body.